What is up, everybody, and welcome to FPL WildCats Live. First off, as you can see, we are missing a Kurt for now, but Nim will let you know why that is. I also want to apologise if you do hear any shouting in the background of my audio. We have literally just got home from my daughter's birthday, so happy birthday, Ari, if you are watching. Thank you guys so much for joining us. Thank you guys. 21 of you already here to watch us talk a bit of FPL. With the season just around the corner. So, Nim, I'll pass over to you and let's get this stream started.
Yeah, thanks, Jay, and welcome everyone to our second pre-season stream for the 1920 Premier League season. We've been doing some testing this week and we couldn't stop chatting FPL at all during it. So we thought, why don't we just go live and test the tech at the same time? Seemed like a no-brainer, really. So here we are. As you can see, there is no Kurt at the moment. He will be joining us. He's checking his emails at the moment. Anyone who's watching the last stream will know what we mean by that. But no, he's just running a bit late, but he will be here soon. So let's get on with the show. Feel free to get those questions in the chat, people. Make sure to do the polls. But how about we start with seeing how those drafts are coming on? We're not actually putting the teams up on screen yet. We're going to hold you out a bit longer. If you want to know how we're doing, make sure you go check out our channels. But, Brett, have you changed anything since we spoke last?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean,
just a tiny bit.
Yeah,
just about 100 drafts.
It depends in what sense, because I've made loads of changes, but now it's ended up back to where I almost was. So even though I've tinkered so many times, I'm still not far off where I was before. So the core of my team is still the same. I've still got Trent and Robertson at the back, as many people have. And obviously Salah and Sterling in midfield, which is obviously quite a big chunk of the budget. So my team is basically built around the three Liverpool players and Sterling, basically, finding it hard to get around those. I've still got Zinchenko instead of Laporte to save that 1 million. I know Laporte's obviously the less of a headache, but that million does go a long way, you know. So, yeah, I'm finding it hard to fit Laporte in at 6.5, and it's never that nice paying 6.5 million for a centre back, really. So I do quite like Zinchenko, providing he starts, you know. Still a 3-5-2 as well, still the same formation. So I've got Alexander-Arnold, Robertson, Zinchenko at the back, Salah, Sterling, Gylfi, Sigurdsson in midfield, the reliable Mr. Sigurdsson, and then I've got Fraser at the moment, who I didn't have in my original draft. I've got Fraser and Perez now. Up front, I've got Joshua King still. But I did have Jota, and now I'm slowly talking myself out of Wolves options. Europa League, they've signed another striker, potential rotation there. So as things stand, I've got a 6 million placeholder in Wesley from Aston Villa. I'm tempted to take a little bit of a punt on him. I like Villa's fixtures. Over the long term, they've got some decent fixtures in the opening 10 game weeks. So Wesley's the punt that I'm taking. I'm tempted to take one Villa player, and Wesley's that man at the moment.
Cool.
And at the moment, yeah.
And Jay, how you kind of?
I've changed my team so many times that I had to open my team up just to know what team I currently have. There was no way I was going to be able to tell you off the top of my head. The one consistent, or the couple of consistents, are I've not moved off of Ryan and Button, although I really want to, as my pairing of goalkeepers. I have always had two Liverpool defenders. At the moment, it's Arnold and Van Dijk. I currently actually have two Man City defenders as well, Laporte and Zinchenko, with Sterling and Salah. Midfield, I've usually had Fraser, and I've usually had either King or Wilson, just for Bournemouth's first two fixtures, hoping that Bournemouth actually show up as the attacking side they can be and don't do what they can do, which is just completely disappoint. And then as soon as you transfer them out, that's when they actually go and get the goals. As far as the actual rest of my team is structured, if I can find a 4 million defender, he's going in and he'll just sit on the bench. I have hopefully 5 playing midfielders. For some reason, Grosh is in there at the moment. Not 100% sure why. I must have had a feeling that Brighton might do all right at the beginning of the season. But he's there with Tillemans, with 5 starting midfielders and only 1 starting striker, with as many cheap strikers as possible around them. Purely because I wasn't too sure about the Wolves strikers, because I did have Jota to begin with. But with the signing of Catrone, not too sure, although my sources say Catrone is more of a like-for-like with Jimenez. Not that I've seen him play myself, than he is for Jota. So if they're going to keep the team structure the same, Catrone would play instead of Jimenez, and they'd rotate those two. But we don't know. We've got to wait and see on that. But yeah, at the moment I'm pretty sure I'll either be playing something along the 4-5-1 or a 4-4-2. And yeah, I know a lot will change before the start of the season.
Did you say you've got Laporte and Zinchenko?
Yep.
Yeah.
Wow, nice. Fair play.
So, I much like you guys, although until yesterday I had not touched my team and it was still exactly the same as my first draft video that I did all those weeks ago. But yeah, yesterday I started to have a little bit of a tinker. So at the moment, I've gone from having 2 Liverpool defenders at the back to having Trent, Wan-Bissaka and Laporte with Pickford. Pickford has kind of stayed there most pre-season, but I know we'll probably touch on it later, the whole Guy thing leaving. I'm still now a little bit wary about that whole kind of Everton defence. So I'm thinking I might kind of go a lot cheaper there, and I'm thinking possibly, say, a Heaton and a Henderson rotation thing, or Ryan, with one of those two maybe. Then my midfield at the moment is De Bruyne, Salah. So I haven't gone Sterling like you guys have. I've got Brooks, but I know we will chat again a bit later because I know he's injured. Hodgberg and Perez. And then up front, Aguero, Kingy and Greenwood. Now, I need to see, obviously, whether Aguero is going to play on the weekend. It's this weekend, isn't it?
Yep, on Sunday.
Yeah. I'll see if he plays. If he doesn't play, then I will make De Bruyne Sterling, most likely, and then that will leave the Aguero spot at about 9.5. So Vardy, somebody like that, I might start the season with, possibly a Lacazette, Firmino. See how I go, but it's still likely to change, let's be honest.
Who did you say your midfield is apart from Salah and De Bruyne at the moment?
It's Brooks, but it won't stay as Brooks now that he's injured.
Yeah.
Hodgberg, Southampton, and Perez. obviously I would like Tealsman there, but obviously he's a bit more expensive. So, but then again, if I'm putting Pickford down to a 4.5, then that will free up a bit of cash. So, yeah.
Yeah, Brooks was
bit of a
looking like
change.
Brooks was looking like the budget way into that midfield, wasn't he?
I
For
know,
Bournemouth
how
and-
annoying. How annoying is that? But the main change, I guess, for me is that I've gone from, in my first draft, 3-4-3 to now a 3-3-5-2. So, going with two strikers possibly. However, with this new signing for Man United, I think that really pushes Greenwood down the kind of pipping
Yeah.
post even
Yeah.
more. So that makes me a little bit worried, even though I know he will be bench fodder. It's still that kind of worry, I guess, that one week you might need them, and then it's like, oh,
Yeah,
it'd be
that's kind of
nice.
the case with my bench at the moment. Like we've all got these 4 million / 4.5 million options that could play, but I haven't got anyone that is definitely playing. And it kind of feels wrong to, that 12th man at least. It would be ideal to have a 12th member of your squad that is going to play, because if Zinchenko does get rotated, or if Gomez comes with a Trent in game week 3 or game week 4, you never know when it's going to happen. It would be nice to have someone. This is why everyone's going Dendoncker at 4.5, because you kind of know with him that you're 99% sure you get at least 2 points from him. But
yeah, he was in this draft literally, I think, before Hodgberg went into it. So yeah, he's very close to being my kind of fifth midfielder spot for sure. Okay, we have a lot of questions tonight. Everyone's so excited about FPL restarting. So I'll kick us off with the first one. FPL Classico asks, aren't Salah, Sterling and a balanced rest of the team better than trying to fit Kane in too? He can't justify even owning Kane over one of those two mids. He feels Man City and Liverpool are the better teams, have better fixtures, and the mids get more points for their positive actions. So guys, Kane, do we take him? It sounds like he's kind of fighting with himself whether having Salah and Sterling and Kane really upsets the balance of his whole squad. So would you do all three, Jay?
I mean, I haven't even tried to do all three. I have approached this season really wanting to focus on getting Salah, Sterling in, because I think it's the second season I've definitely noticed that the midfielders have significantly outscored the strikers, with the prices being quite similar between the premium priced options. So I focused on my midfielders, premium players, which meant after getting also a defence in, which I did very well last season if you have the right defenders at the right time, I never have over 9 million to spend on a striker, so I've not even considered it. I have seen some teams where they have somehow managed to get it in, and while it looks okay, I'd still be a bit iffy about some of the starting 11 that are actually playing. So I actually think two premium price players is probably, with only 100 million to spend, about the max you can really go for. If you get your team budget up, and if that's a focus of yours while the season's going on, there might come a point where you can actually bring in a third premium price player. And I'm just going to check now, because I saw Kurt in the chat, that maybe we can bring Kurt in. But yeah, I can't really see myself going 3 premium price players. So Kane is someone I will kind of wait and see on, just because he hasn't had the best season from last year, and it is August.
Yeah, so I can completely see what you're saying, but I have been tempted, I'm not going to lie, and I actually have had a couple of teams where I've had at least Kane and Salah and maybe KDB rather than Sterling, if you see what I mean.
Yeah.
However, I think obviously, because it is a balance thing, isn't it? Once you put Kane in, you are upsetting the balance. But he is scoring pre-season now, or at least he has been. Aston Villa first up is a nice fixture.
For sure.
Is a tough one to ignore, especially with this new signing that they've got, helping shore up that middle and excuse me, I've forgotten his name at the moment. Ndombele, that's it. It's kind of shored that middle of the park area up, so if Eriksen stays, that should free up Kane to be the Kane that we all know and love. So it could really make him like a viable kind of golden boot winner almost again. Would I don't think I'd drop Sterling or Salah for Kane. So then you've just got to decide whether or not you want to fit everyone else in around them, or whether just other players you want more, I think is probably my answer to that one. So, Brett, agree, disagree, anything to add?
I think you made a good point, Nim. If you wanted all three, which is quite unrealistic, maybe it's difficult, then the make weight would be Sterling to De Bruyne. And I think that, because if you're set on Salah, for example, because there's no drop down in Liverpool like there is in Man City, because you can go from Sterling to De Bruyne. In Liverpool, you can only go really Salah to Mane, which is only $1 million, so it's not quite the same. But yeah, I mean, owning all three, I've tried to fit Kane in as well, and it does just affect the rest of the team, just playing around at the moment as we're talking. So I could potentially, if I wanted to get Kane, for example, and have Salah and Sterling as this guy wants, I could drop Alexander-Arnold to Van Dijk, upgrade Joshua King to Kane, lovely, but then it would be Gylfi Sigurdsson all the way down to Dendoncker. So I'd have a great team still, because Van Dijk and Alexander-Arnold, almost
not terrible. That's pretty much what I had in my first draft.
That's not too bad. So. King up to Kane, excellent upgrade. But I would happen to be starting Dendoncker every game. He would be my 11th man, So that's a bit annoying, having a 4.5 starting every game. The reason I'm tempted to get Kane is because I was watching one of my old videos earlier, I had to get like something from the description. So I clicked on it, and it was from like last year, and Kane was 13 million at the time. And I was like, wow, I forgot that Kane was actually 13 million at one point. So he ended the season before last at 13.1 million. I mean, he's had over 200 points in 3 seasons, got 191 the season before those. Last season was his worst on 160, and now he's back down to 11 million. So it is an amazing value for Kane, because there's only 2 years ago.
If you can stick him out, he could definitely be worth it. Because think of that kind of profit you could make if he does do really well.
100%.
And he is the type of player that once he starts doing well, everyone will want, so they will buy, so his price will go up.
Exactly. 20 plus goals in 4 of the last 5 seasons. The only time he didn't get 20 goals in the Premier League was last year. He got 17. I mean, that's 17 is his worst season in 5 years, which is actually a good season, but for his standards it's bad, which shows what a quality player he is. So it's tempting to get him because he is 11 million. It's like, wow, Kane used to be like 12.5, 13. And if Salah dropped 1 million this year, and we're like, oh my god, we got to get Salah now, or he dropped 0.5, and we're like, oh wow, he's a bargain now. Like, Kane's dropped like 1.5 million, and like we're still like, nah, I don't want Kane anymore. It's tempting. It is tempting, but
I mean, I want Kane. Don't get me wrong. It's just exactly what our Classico was saying. FPL Classico was saying. It's a case of who else you lose in order to get him in.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I would love to own all 3, but I think if you want Kane, it's more likely the Salah, De Bruyne, Kane triple up is the way to do it.
I think the issue there is, are we 100% confident De Bruyne hit form? Because I think we all agree De Bruyne's a great player, but 2, will he not get injured? Because if De Bruyne can match Sterling's points, then it's a no-brainer. But De Bruyne has to match Sterling.
In terms of injury, then anybody can get injured at any point.
Well, Sterling's got a better record than De Bruyne and Kane injury-wise.
Yeah, but also De Bruyne is having a cracking pre-season. He's scored a couple of goals and assisted a couple already, so he's doing quite well.
Well, that's why it's difficult. That is the caveat, though, isn't it? Because De Bruyne isn't as tempting as Sterling. But if you want Kane, then you have to kind of take that little gamble on KDB, you know, which is why it's difficult to do it, because of those doubts on KDB and whether he can stay fit. And, you know, Sterling does feel like the safer option, but he's, you know, $2.5 million more expensive.
If you can sit through that Aston Villa game without Kane, then maybe it's best to go Sterling initially. Have a little look at how KDB does in his first match. Obviously, City have a great couple of first games. See how KDB does, and then have those transfers ready straight away. If you want Kane, then you can obviously downgrade Sterling to KDB and then upgrade to Kane.
Yeah, someone in the comments as well obviously mentions the Man City away fixture in game week 2 for Kane. So that is a little bit of like a reprieve. Like if you don't have him, at least you think, well, he's got Man City away. Probability wise, he may get one goal there. He's not going to haul there probably. But the good thing about Kane is because he's 11 million, you can move from him to Aubameyang to maybe Aguero. Like you've got that one player up front that you can kind of switch around if you need to. And I haven't got that luxury at the moment because I'm very light up front.
That's why I'm trying to keep that kind of Aguero spot.
Yeah,
Sure.
I can see your reasoning for that.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Momo would like to know that he knows they are risky options, but who is better, Zaha or Martial? So for me, I think Zaha, 10 goals and 11 assists last season, but I feel with more game time, Martial, it could be as good, if not better. What do you guys think?
Jay, do you want to go?
The problem with Martial is it's always been bursts.
Yeah.
Where he has periods where he looks like a player we all need to be considering. If that Man United side started to look like it was sorting itself out, and I almost feel like if Pogba had left, I'd be more confident that it might sort itself out. Because he's still there, I'm not sure the change room is really going to change that much, even with the potential signings that are being linked with currently, which are quite exciting, to be fair. I feel like Zaha, on the other hand, again, could potentially be moving, but if he stays at Palace, it's a known quantity in a known team that is only really missing their right back, that went to, of course, United. Or he goes to Everton, where he may have something to prove because he didn't get the move to a European club and he wants to get Everton into Europe. Or if Arsenal do come back in, although it looks most likely that they're not going to now with Pepe potentially going in, I feel like if Zaha does move or doesn't move, he's still going to have something to prove. Whereas with Martial, I'm just not sure about his mentality. And that mentality then affects his game time. Because as soon as a manager sees that he's not giving it his all, despite his quality, that's when he doesn't start getting started. And they've got the likes of Daniel James, could potentially be getting Dybala. If he's not putting in the work, will he start? So I worry about his game time again this season, whereas I feel like Zaha is going to play no matter what happens. So I'd be more confident in Zaha. But Martial definitely has the potential to be really, really good.
Do you feel the same, Brett?
Yeah, it's always the same with Martial. It's just a question of his minutes and where will he play and will he play. Just had a quick look at his stats now, and like he's had maybe 120 points, 130 points the last 2 seasons, but they've both been with like 15 to 1600 minutes, like half a season, because he doesn't play that much. So actually, he is outperforming Zaha because he's almost equaling his stats, but in half the minutes played, you know. But the luxury with Zaha is you kind of know he's the main man, he's the talisman for the team, and he plays every game. So if Martial was playing every 90 minutes or getting the same minutes as Zaha, I would take Martial every day of the week, personally. Maybe that's just personal preference. I just rate Martial highly when he, on his day anyway, you know. But it just feels like too risky at the moment because we don't know if he's going to start. Is Dybala going to sign? It's just hard to know how they're going to utilise Martial and whether whether he gets a good run of games, So he could provide amazing value this season. And I even put him in a little list of players that I was looking at that could be best value for money. But again, it's always the same with Martial. Will he actually get enough playing time,
Yeah, agreed.
So he's a riskier pick. An exciting punt, but a riskier one. Zaha's the safer bet. He's just a little bit.
I would have liked Arsenal to have signed Martial instead of Mkhitaryan, if I'm honest, when we had the option. I think he would have been a great player at Arsenal. Okay, do we have any questions in the chat before I go back to my long list?
Yeah, I didn't take the guy's name, actually. Sorry, whoever asked this. Oh, I think it was Morgan Larson, actually. Hope that's the right guy that asked the question. He wants to know, can Ryan be a better option than the other 4.5 goalkeepers? So has anyone got Ryan here? And I think you said you have got him, Jay?
Yeah, I've only got him because I've only got Ryan because I feel like I know he will start. When looking at the other 4.5s, there was, of course, Burnley, who you're hoping go back to the form that they had the season before they got into Europe. If Pope is back in, because it looks like Heaton has been linked quite a few times to other clubs. If Heaton does leave, then I'd be hoping Pope would be able to step in and hope he has a similar season to what he had when Heaton was initially out. Other than that, the promoted sides could always offer good value. We saw what happened with Etheridge last season. So there are some good goalkeepers in those promoted sides. Henderson, very promising player. We've got Farman coming in from the Bundesliga. Very promising. Well, I say promising. He's a bit of a proven keeper in the Bundesliga, but as far as the Premier League, we have to wait and see on that. So there are definitely options in those sides. And of course, Heaton could be going Villa. You could then have Heaton and Pope potentially as options to rotate with. Not that I've checked the rotation there. So I'm probably less likely to stick with Ryan unless there really doesn't seem to be any other option at 4.5. But part of me does think just 0.5 million more if I can squeeze it out of somewhere else in my squad. The likes of Fabianski is so well proven. The reason those keepers have gone to 5 is because they're proven commodities at 4.5. And I feel like the FPL game were like, we keep putting these players at 4.5 and they keep getting points relatively close enough to the 5.5s and 6s where it's not making the 5.5 and 6s worth it. So, I mean, Fabianski just has been a regular, consistent keeper, despite the fact he doesn't always get clean sheets. So I am very tempted to see if I can bump up to a 5 million goalkeeper.
Hashtag 3.fab. Hashtag 3.5.
That's the thing,
My
over
goalkeeper
season long.
for most of last season.
Exactly. Didn't transfer him out. I know he probably gave you some headaches, but still, you had him the whole season and season long, one of the best performing keepers.
Exactly. Yep. He's one of those keepers that you feel isn't keeping clean sheets ever. Like you think, West Ham just don't keep clean sheets. But you look at the points at the end of the season for the last 2 years, and he's always right up there. He was literally, I think 2 seasons ago, Fabianski was like 15 points behind Edison or something. Mm-hmm. And I'm not looking at the stats now, but again, last season, like Jay said, at like $1 million cheaper than the premiums, he's still got like maybe 10 or 15 points less than them, which is nothing for $1 million saving. It's incredible. And I mean, looking at West Ham's fixtures, bar Man City, playing Man City in the opening game week, they do have some very nice games to start the season, West Ham. So, that 5 million for Fabianski is definitely tempting. So, if you were going to stick to a 4.5, and who would be next in line after Ryan, do you think? What do you reckon, Nim? I mean, have you got Ryan at the moment? Oh, no, you've got Pickford, haven't you?
I got Pickford at the moment. And
so
Button.
You talked earlier about dropping to a 4.5 potentially. So who would you go for if you had to?
I'm thinking maybe Heaton and Ryan. Heaton, Ryan, or Henderson and Ryan. Or I want to do a bit of a kind of rotation comparison before I actually decide I definitely want to drop down to a 4.5 because like with Pickford, I feel like he's almost a kind of Alisson Edison style, just leave him there regardless of who he faces. But obviously we have the whole Everton worry in defence style thing going on. So if I'm going to drop down to a 4.5, then unless I go to Fabianski, then I want to do a bit of a rotation planning in the 4.5s, and yeah, so the ones I'm mainly looking at are like Heaton, Ryan, Henderson. They're probably my kind of 3 at the moment that I'm kind of between. But I think that Kurt was saying that the Norwich goalkeeper has caught his eyes a
Shall we
couple of
bring Kurt in
times.
for that? Because it looks like he might be around.
Not that I try to time that beautifully with a segue or anything. Promise.
What I will say while we're waiting to see if he comes in, it does look like Brighton and Villa, if Heaton does go Villa, does rotate rather well. And we can now pass the question over to Kurt, if you just give me a second, because he should be.
I am here.
Yay!
There we go.
Oh.
How seamless was that?
Oh,
at least I hope it was. I'm waiting for the chat to go. What are you talking about? Where's Kurt?
We don't see him. So we were just talking about 4.5 goalkeepers, and we know that you were talking a little bit to us when we were doing some techie tests during the week about the Norwich keeper. So do you have him in your team at the moment?
I do. Yes, I did toy with the idea of going with a 5.5 and a 4.0, in which I believe I heard a Tottenham chat about their good fixtures, whether you talked about Lloris, and I saw a bit in the chat as well. But I have gone back to a 4.5, because I always pick the wrong set and forget. I've gone with Pope and Farman because I think Pope's a bit of a risk, but if his injury comes out to be good news, then all the better. I think he's a really good choice now. Heaton's gone to Villa, and I think Farman is far, without seeming a bit too harsh on Norwich, I think he's a bit too good for Norwich. I think he's a level above, maybe 2 levels above. He should be maybe hunting for a team like Wolves, but Norwich have snapped him up. It's a good deal to get for the season, and I think he's going to be a good keeper, good shot stopper. Didn't really, I think he fell out of favour, Schalke, at the end, so I think it's a chance for him to get his career back on track, and I think he'll do well.
Cool. Well, one introduction. There you go.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, just quickly. So for me, Morgan, I've got a 4.5 set and forget at the moment. I've actually gone for Henderson, which Nim mentioned earlier. At the moment, I've got Henderson there from Sheffield United. That might raise a few eyebrows. I know he's just come up from the Championship, but 21 clean sheets for Sheffield United last year. Quite young, talented, and they play 5 at the back, Sheffield United, so he's got quite a bit of cover there. 3 centre-backs, and a decent penalty-saving record as well. So 6 penalties saved from 14 that he's faced in his career so far. So a decent penalty-saving record there. And save points as well. If Sheffield United do get bombarded with lots of shots, he might rack up some save points. So I don't know if he's going to stay my 4.5 keeper, but I do quite like him as an option. And we saw Etheridge at Cardiff City, end up being a really high-scoring goalkeeper last year. So yeah, that's my choice at the moment. But
so Brett, are you 2 4.5s, or is that with the 5 mil?
That's my 4.5 and a 4 mil. So he's a set and forget.
So he's kind of your set and forget.
I'm ultimate budget in goal at the moment. Yeah, just I don't know. I've tried rotating keepers in the past, and you rotate the home goalkeeper into your side, and then the one away from home gets like an 11-pointer or something. And
yeah,
I don't know. I've read a lot on Twitter about trying to get away from as many decisions as you can, like to make the more important decisions easier and not to be faced with so many decisions each week. So I think it might just be a bit less stressful if I just have one keeper, just leave him in there, and then I haven't got to worry, which one shall I play? And then I can focus on the other.
Why does that make me feel like that would only raise more decisions? Like, this is another Twitter thing all over again, isn't it? It's like, do whatever you think will make you face less decisions, and then you go with like Henderson as your 4.5 set and forget, and 3 weeks in, something happens to him and you're like, oh crap, now what do I do? Where do I find the cash from these 2 players and this player? And so it's like, it's a bit, I don't think in FPL there ever is an easy kind of non-decision making team. unless you're literally just going to make your team at the beginning of the season.
Not that I've
just
ever been in
leave
it, but
it
I'm
alone.
assuming if you're in the top 10 and you keep being in the top 10, your decisions are probably quite easy and fun to make. But
yeah,
for most of us, I think we'll always be facing headaches.
Yeah. And that's what makes the community such a beautiful place to be in. we'd be rubbish if there was no decisions to make. So, okay, we have one here at RyanFX7 says 4 male options are emerging in Rico, Lundstrom, and recently Ben Johnson, as we see Kelly option declining with the return of Sacco. Who do we think is the most nailed? At FPL Tips also had a similar question asking if there are any four male defenders going to be the next Wan-Bissaka this season. So, Kurt, what do you think? Any 4 male defenders do you think we should be keeping our eyes open for?
Well, at the moment, I mean, I can still change my mind. At the moment, annoyingly, I've got Lundstrom in my team for £4 million, which hurts me considering I'm a Wednesday fan. It pains me.
So last year you wouldn't bring in Salah, but you're quite happy to bring in a Sheffield United player.
I bought him both this year, so I've gone against everything.
He's just thrown caution to the wind.
But I'm not sure. Arika, I don't know much about. Lundstram, I did. I did watch a lot of Sheffield United last season, just because I like watching a lot of the Championship. I like keeping up to date with how my team's getting on and how other teams getting on. He didn't play too much.
Sorry, is your team in the Championship? Don't think you've told us before.
Well, not that I mention it. It's nothing to be proud of. Now, flipping United have gone up, but I do like to try and keep up to date. And that way, when teams go up, I like to, I think I know a lot about them. And Lundstram doesn't really play as a defender. I think last season, I don't think he even played as a defender once. If I remember rightly, he didn't play too much, but he didn't play as a defender. So the fact he's down as that, I'm not really sure why. Because correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think he made a single appearance in defence. So even if their fixtures are pants, and I do think, being unbiased, one of the weakest teams out there, you can't turn that option down. If he is to play 5, 6, games to maybe 12, 15 games, he's playing as a midfielder. So it's a £4 million. I think it's well worth spending.
Yeah, I think the issue is that I have read somewhere that he might not get the game time, that he's not first choice, and that they've signed some other people that could take his place.
Yeah.
I can't remember
everyone's going for him because he's getting a lot of pre-season minutes. But that could be for various reasons. I have considered him because I do like at least the player to get the pre-season minutes if I am going to take the risk. But I think we had quite a few last season that were getting the minutes and then didn't get them as soon as the season started. I think it's completely impossible to predict if there's going to be another Wan-Bissaka. And I'd imagine, I would bet money on it that there won't be another Wan-Bissaka.
Not as good as Wan-Bissaka.
No, there is none of the options, do I think, are going to turn out to be as good as Wan-Bissaka. If I had to estimate a guess which one could potentially be, if he got the game time, I'd probably go with Rico, but it would be more of a case of if he was enough of an attacking threat, because I don't have that much faith in Bournemouth to get clean sheets. Lundstrom, from everything I've read, I don't think he's going to start, even though he's getting the pre-season minutes. I just really don't. I would love it if he did, but I just think it's a lot less likely than last season that they're going to price someone at $4 million and they actually be a really viable option.
Kelly might at least get some game time at the start of the season because Saka's only played limited amount of minutes in pre-season and Tompkins hasn't played at all because they haven't been fit, obviously. But as soon as they are fit, it looks unlikely he'll, get regular minutes. So maybe Kelly is for the early wildcarders.
What has McTavish said about Kelly then, Nim? Has he said anything?
Pretty much. I think that's pretty much what he said, to be honest with you. That he'll most likely start at the beginning of the season because of injury, but he'll unlikely keep his place, especially when Sacco's back, because he's the main man. So
I don't know Palace that well, but would Kelly play at right back anyway? Even if Sacco's there, is Kelly still? Does that put Kelly under threat? I mean, wouldn't Kelly just play at right back?
I think Tompkins then is
okay.
I would have thought. But if Meg's in the chat, he can maybe help clear it up.
Yeah, sure.
I'd agree. It'd be interesting to know who the right back is.
I know Joel Ward is right-footed, but he normally plays on the left. I think he's right-footed at least. I'm not sure. But he's an option.
Okay, yeah. So the guys in the chat are saying Ward, actually.
Yeah,
so.
Mick said Ward as well.
Fair enough. Cool.
So if Ward gets injured.
Yeah. At FPL WildCats, Will Brooks injury. Obviously, we've learned this week. I did actually take a snip of. Cherries are set to be without attacking midfielder David Brooks for 2 to 3 months after Wales International was ruled out of action with an ankle injury. He's going to have surgery, apparently. So it also looks as though they'll be without Lloyd Kelly as well. He's got ligament damage in his ankle. So Booster says, does the injury outcome affect Wilson, Fraser and King? And who takes Brooks's place? Will it be Solanke or Ibe or somebody else? So anyone with any Bournemouth information for us?
I was so sure you were going to ask who you could put instead of him. That I was already thinking of
I wouldn't.
Answer.
I don't know Bournemouth enough to know who would actually come in for Brooks.
They have bought Billing, haven't they, recently?
He's a central midfielder, though. Yeah. I think he played for Huddersfield a lot of season. He was more of a deeper player and a centralised player.
They've got Stanislas as well. I don't know if he's fit, but
he's injured on the game at the moment. Stanislas
he's always injured, isn't he? Like when he's fit, he's actually a really good option. But
when he's fit, he's good for 2 days.
In terms of Fraser and Wilson, granted they've lost a bit of creativity with Brooks there, but Fraser and Wilson were already concrete, but that kind of solidifies them even more, if you like. Yeah. And there's been a lot of worry about King during pre-season that he's not really playing much. He's not really around. Yeah, there's kind of suggestions that, I don't know, with Solanke maybe on the fringes. Is King definitely going to be in the starting 11 and stuff? That's kind of what I've been reading on Twitter.
Solanke get given a really big number as well.
Yeah, I think maybe number 9 or something.
Yeah, but I think I retweeted a tweet from King that was he expects to play this season, and
he wanted to score more goals, didn't he?
He wants to score. Yeah,
he should be a 20-goal a season striker.
So what I was going to say is that with Brooks out, that's one less player. I know they're different positions, but it kind of makes me feel a bit safer about King. Actually, because there's one position that's kind of one good player's gone and more room for King to come in. So. I'm not saying King was definitely going to be left out, but that just makes me feel a bit more assured that he will be in there now because there's a spot there,
Yeah, sure. Cool. Do we have any questions in the chat?
Yes. Callum, I'll answer Callum's question because he's posted it about 20 times already. So Callum, he wants to know our opinions on Wolves' new signing, Catrone. I don't know if anyone knows much about him. And it seems that he's kind of deciding whether he wants this new signing Catrone or Jota in his team.
Right.
So does anyone know much about this Italian striker they've signed?
I have spoken to a wild Dave Azzopardi, and also there's another guy who apparently was a Milan fan who is in the Twitter community. So from what I can tell, Catrone is not the finished article by any means, but he is one of those players that really does put the work in and is quite the mould similar to Raul Jimenez and not a Diogo Jota. So from what I've read, the AC Milan fan thinks he's a rotation option with Jimenez. And
interesting.
Dave said he still thinks Jota will play a big part in the season for Wolves. But with them having Europa League now, they are going to have more options just generally.
Yeah, definitely.
So I mean, if he hits the ground running, Cutrone is probably going to get more game time. But I think the general feeling is it's not necessarily going to be that quick a process of him getting into the swing of things. I mean, if we just look at Jota, it's clear now what kind of player he is, and it was clear in the Championship. But when we all picked him at the start of the season last year, he just wasn't the player we were all assuming he would be. So I would definitely, if you really like the options, potentially Europa League won't take a massive effect on them straight away, and you can maybe take a risk with Jota or Jimenez, because I still think those are the favoured two. But yeah, there's always the risk, of course. For all we know, there'll be an early injury because of one of those Europa League games that they're playing in, and then the picture will become a lot clearer. So I still lean towards Jota, even though I really like Jimenez as an option, but it's just the price. And it's one of those that be ready to make a move elsewhere if you really do want one of those options to start the season with. Yeah,
definitely. Like for me, if you are just doing a toss-up between this Cutrone and Jota, then it's Jota every day of the week for me. It's not that I don't know much about this Cutrone, but after Jota and Jimenez worked so well together in the 3-5-2 last season, I can't see the manager Nuno trying to change something that doesn't need fixing, you know. So they've got so many more fixtures now with the Europa League. They need the backup. I can't see this Cutrone like just nailing a first 11 starting spot when Jota and Jimenez were so effective last season. So I've had Jota in my draft for a long time. This signing of Cutrone does worry me for Jota's minutes because of the substitutions, you know, maybe at 60 minutes and stuff. But I definitely wouldn't be considering Cutrone personally. It's more, do I go with Jota at all now? You know, it just does worry me a bit for his minutes and rotation, that kind of thing. Did a bit of research, and if they continue to qualify through the Europa League, they've got to play a Europa League qualifier before every single Premier League game in the opening 4 game weeks. So they've got to play a qualifier 4 days before their opening fixture against Leicester, a qualifier 3 days before the second game against United, I think it is, another Europa League game 2 days before Burnley in game week 3. I looked at the schedule for the Europa League games, and then the 4th game is again 3 days before game week 4. So when I looked at that, I'm like, oh, should I really start with Jota, you know, because there's so many games there. So I'm kind of hoping they kind of go out, you know, just so it makes it easier, because I really wanted Jota. I really rate him. And he's just getting better and better. He's still young. But yeah, between those two, it's Jota all day for me.
Cool. Okay. We have one here. At Blues Attack asks, who has made the single best signing of the summer so far? Kurt.
Oh, put on a spot here. I've gone blank. I've gone absolutely blank. I'll go with one because I do think, I mean, in grand scheme of things, looking at things, I think it could be good. I think Perez for Leicester, I think, is a solid one. However, I would like to request a quick go away when all of you are talking, because I've gone completely blank. And I was trying to, 5 minutes ago, I was absolutely turned over by the fact that apparently Brooks is injured, and I just moved him into my team today. So I was trying to find a replacement, and I saw Perez and thought, he's 6.5, that's quite good. But he is a good signing. I think a bit overpriced, but for what you get, he's a perfect star player to play next to Vardy.
Yeah, I've gone with Wan-Bissaka actually. United, they needed to strengthen their defence, and they've done that in Wan-Bissaka. He got 12 clean sheets last season, 3 assists with Palace. You'd like to think he could do better than that for United. So I think he could be the signing of the summer. What about you? Brett? What do you think?
I think Tielemans at Leicester for 40 million could end up being an absolute bargain. I know they kind of already had him on loan last season, but for them to get his signature when he's been such a talented youngster for a few years, I'm surprised a bigger club didn't get him for 40 million. I think that's an amazing signing. And if Everton pull off this Moise Kean transfer, even with a buyback clause. Like if they get him, who was like the next big thing in Italy, like 6 months ago or something for Juventus, like he was like a wonder kid. If they get him for like 35 million, that seems like a steal, to be fair. I mean, he's not a player I've watched loads, but I was hearing all about him last season. Like he was like the new kid on the block sort of thing, banging in the goals. So that could be a great transfer. And with Everton's fixtures, FPL wise, he could be a nice little punt up front,
Yeah, definitely. I think at McDavis asked us what new signings are tickling our fancy. So I'd kind of go back to the point on Leicester, because obviously Perez and Tielemans are two great signings for them. Yeah. Tielemans with 3 goals and 5 assists last season, and Perez with 12 goals and 2 assists. They're great signings for them. So it kind of ties in, I guess, to that. Jay, any thoughts on any of that?
Well, I mean, Leicester are the one that I would say are having probably the best transfer window. Like, I know the likelihood of them losing Maguire is probably still quite high, and I'm assuming they've got a backup plan for that if it does happen. But that seems like a stronger side because of the signings they've made. I know Tielemans was already there, but bringing him in was an important part of their building process. They needed to get him for another season. One for me probably isn't one that I would bring into my side, but I think does give the potential for a Kevin De Bruyne to be a viable option instead of Sterling, is Rodri. Because with Rodri coming in, Rodri and Fernandinho at that club means there is, to me anyway, logically, and I hope I'm right about this, less likely a need for Kevin De Bruyne to be droppers deep and be the kind of player that assists the assister. So I'm very interested to see how Rodri fits into that side, because if it does work out well, there shouldn't be that period where suddenly Fernandinho, for whatever reason, isn't available, and then that was when Man City had a part of their season where they weren't as good. Potentially other players that we were looking at had to drop deeper, and it just didn't tick over as well at Man City. So if Rodri fits in, and from everything I've read about him, he should fit right into the Pep system, then I think that opens up the possibility to save some money from Sterling down to De Bruyne.
Cool. Well, at Players Attack thinks we're all wrong, because he reckons that Tini at Arsenal is the best signing so far.
It hasn't happened.
Is that confirmed?
Hasn't even signed yet.
I was going to say.
Let's wait till it goes through first.
So he's just, he's hoping, I think.
I'm very interested in that if it does go through, though. But
don't jinx it.
If it does go through, I think my Maitland-Niles problem goes away, because he goes away out of my team. But if we're talking about potential well, it's a problem because
pushing him all season.
I think he looks good, but the more I look at him, the more I think this is part of the reason why I finish outside the top 3.5 million most weeks. It's part of the reason. Silly things like that. I think, that'll do well, and it never does. But if we're doing potential deals, the Dybala-Lukaku swap, Man United are getting so much a better deal than that. And in FPL, I think that's a terrific player to have, Dybala.
Although I could just imagine you now this season, like playing all straight and narrow, and like having had your crazy team right at the start, and then looking back at the end of the season, like, no, I didn't go with my crazy team.
Lacazette gets a season-ending injury, and Maitland-Niles becomes the new Lacazette. He is the
new Wan-Bissaka. Maitland-Niles.
Oh, don't. They're awful.
If we're talking potential transfers, and I think it's very close to happening, Pepe has the feel, to me, of a player that could be massive in the Premier League. Almost like an Aubameyang with also assists. So I'm very interested in what Pepe can bring to the table if he does.
Do you think he'll be a midfielder? Do you think there's a chance he could be
If he's a midfielder, I'll be a lot more.
He should be a midfielder, shouldn't he? I think he played out wide for most of the season.
He's a winger, so if it's like they didn't put Salah up front, so I imagine that Pepe should still be a midfielder. And if he's anything below 9, then I'd be tempted to take
8.5. 8.5.
Give him a 7.5. Pulisic was around the same price. Come on, give him 7.5.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. It would be really nice to actually finally be able to have a Arsenal midfield option.
Well, I think with 7.5 would be straight in my team, I reckon, from the beginning. I think he'd be about 9 probably.
Yeah. Cool. Do we have another question in the chat?
Yeah, just quickly, just to kind of continue with the last question really quick. Jay, someone in the comments is talking about Haller being a great signing. Like, as a West Ham kind of follower, do you know much about this Haller? And have you like
I think he scored today, didn't he?
I think he did score today, yes.
Yeah.
Because I'm quite intrigued by him, actually, to be fair. West Ham got some good fixtures.
It feels all very Anderson to me.
As soon as he was brought in, I was excited because he did do very well in the Bundesliga. He was playing alongside, and I apologise if I got this wrong, but this is going off my TIFO knowledge as they did a lot of Bundesliga stuff last year. Pretty sure he was in the same side as Jovic.
Yes.
Yeah.
Frankfurt.
And again, I read a post by a fan at Frankfurt who thinks a lot of the reason Haller had such a good season is because he was playing alongside Jovic, which meant defences had that issue already of having a very informed striker who, of course, has now been picked up by Real Madrid. That's how well he had done. So the team was getting lots of goals anyway, had the players there to make it happen. And while I feel West Ham have made some good moves this transfer window, is it really the same situation? He also seems to be one of those that needs a season to get used to a league, because he came from the Dutch league. He had a great record in his last season in the Dutch league. Again, apologies, I don't remember which team it was for. But then the first season in Germany, he didn't get the kind of numbers he got last season, which made him an appealing transfer for West Ham. That being said, the way he plays could potentially really suit the players around him. So for me, it's a wait and see. If he'd come in a bit cheaper, I maybe would say take a punt on him, but because of the prices coming out, I'm a bit like just wait and see. So he joins the likes of, say, Martial on the watch list for me that I'm ready to bring in if I think the signs are there, but I wouldn't start the season with him.
Cool. Thanks, mate.
Yeah. Okay. Did we have another one in the chat, or should I?
You fire one to us, Nim, if you've got one.
Okay. FPL WildCats asks, is David Silva being completely overlooked? So got some stats here. 6 goals and 7 assists in 2,399 minutes last season. He's 75 mil. Owned by just 3.5% at the moment, compared to Bilver, who got 7 goals and 8 assists and is 8 mil and owned by 26.5%. At the moment. That's
higher ownership than I realised for Bernardo.
Yeah. So is David Silva being phased out of the team though? Do we think? Because there was some mention, last season about his personal life and the types of players that Pep's buying seem to be kind of suggesting that this. Well, I think David did say this would be his last season, didn't he himself? So. Do we feel he'll be phased out, or do you think Pep will give him one last season to go out with a bang? And are we overlooking him? Go on, Brett. You look keen to answer.
I was going to say yes, he's being overlooked, but for good reason. He's not. I think there's a reason he's being overlooked. Like you said, he's getting on now. He's 33, going on 34, and there's no doubt he's like one of the best players ever to play in the Premier League. Like, I love David Silva, but as an option this year, he can, if he starts games, obviously he can deliver, and I just don't think he's an option. You got Foden, who will try and, surely Foden will try and get some minutes this season. He's been waiting for a long time to kind of get a chance in the team. City have just got so many options. I think Pep will play David Silva because he trusts him, but he'll play him every now and then, not every game, I think he'll be hit by a bit of rotation. So I don't want to say don't get David Silva, because in FPL anything can happen, but he's not someone that I haven't considered David Silva for 1 second. Let's put it that way.
Cool. Jay, thoughts?
I mean, I think the reason I didn't really go near David Silva last year was because I was thinking maybe he'll start getting phased out. So, I mean, it just seems like Bilver's got into that circle of trust. Like, Pep has these players that he just really believes in and don't seem to let him down. And I'm not saying by any means David Silva hasn't earned that, because I think David Silva's proven himself season after season. But there has to surely be a point where he does start getting phased out. I mean, if a transfer was made of another player in a similar ilk to like Silva and Bilva, I would then be like, okay, Silva's definitely getting phased out. A bit like with Fernandinho, I feel like, okay, while he was still probably playing an important part this season, I think Rodri is like the natural replacement for him. So there's that worry. But then again, if I also consider that last season I wasn't going anywhere near Eden Hazard because he was meant to move and then he didn't move, potentially it's worry for nothing.
Thank God we don't have to worry about that this season.
So, yeah, I think he's probably being overlooked, but I think it's just a bit too much of a risk when there's more secure Man City options in that you could be putting into your side. And I know Silva's slightly cheaper, but I think if you're going for City, you might as well be going for where the points are, because they're going to get, I'm assuming anyway, a lot of points again this season.
Yeah, it's a bit like Liverpool, isn't it? You know, you if you're going to invest in 3 Liverpool, you're going to go for the ones that are doing the most, you know. But I guess if you had the extra cash lying about and you wanted to, then, you know, there'd be no harm in going with one of the Silvers. Okay, Kurt, FPL Geek wants to know if we are starting with any newcomers in our team from a different league or promoted team. So you've obviously mentioned that you've got the Norwich goalkeeper. Have you got any others?
I have a few. I may have another one for midfielder, but I still haven't found a replacement for Brooks. I've got Farman. Obviously, I've got Lundstrom. The only other one I've got is the Aston Villa right back, Frederick Gilbert.
Nice. Yeah, nice.
Because I think he looks really good, and I think, granted, away to Tottenham, first game of the season, I look at everything else from that. The fixture difficulty rating just makes me really, really excited because it's so much green, and whenever it's a lot of green, you know, it's good. But promoted teams you've got to be wary of. But Villa have strengthened absolutely everywhere. Keeson coming in have strengthened the goalkeeper. You've got Mings confirmed. You've got Gilbert, you know, and Target as well. That's defence, reinforced. You've got new midfielders as well. One of them being Douglas Luiz, who I think is going to be a cracking signing, who's yet to prove himself. Wesley up front as well. I think they've improved everywhere, and his stats speak for himself in the previous league. So that's the only 3 I've got at the moment from different leagues, promoted or elsewhere. There are some others that are close, but it's pre-season. I could have loads, I could have none, but those are the 3 I've got at the moment.
And anybody got anyone different? I've got Perez at the minute, but whether he stays there, I'm not sure. Anyone got anyone different?
From promoted teams, are we talking?
Or from other leagues or foreign leagues. Obviously, Perez isn't foreign, but he's from a different team. But yeah.
I've got Wesley at the moment. So I mentioned off stream. At the start of the stream when we were going through our teams, I mentioned I've got. He's sort of like a £6 million placeholder at the moment because I'm a bit unsure about Jota now. I'm not too sure. So at the moment, Wesley from Villa is in my team. Obviously, it's a bit of a punt. He's a new signing, but he's looked decent in pre-season. He did take penalties in the last pre-season game they had. That's not to say he's definitely going to be on penalties, but he did take them in the pre-season game, so that kind of caught my attention. So look, it's a punt, but like Kurt said, Villa's fixtures are so good for the long term. The opening 10 game weeks, I think maybe 7 of the opening 9 games have got a difficulty rating of 2. I know we can't always go by the difficulty rating that FPL gives, but like Kurt said, there's lots of green there, lots of good fixtures. And so I kind of feel like I want one Villa player because they have got some great fixtures. So it's either, do I go for like Grealish, McGinn, El Ghazi, Jota, someone like that in midfield? But
I'm
because
not going near another Jota pre-season. Not from a promoted side.
I'm quite tempted personally from what I've seen in pre-season. But because I've got my midfield so jam-packed full of players, there's more room up front. So I've got Wesley at the moment. It's a punt, though, because I've never really watched him play, to be fair.
Cool. Jay, have you got anyone different?
I always restrict myself to only going for promoted players
Ooh.
that are cheap budget options. So 4.5 million defender I'm fine with, 4 million defender I'm fine with. That's pretty much about it. I always think for me, I just can kind of do a wait and see, and then because the problem I have is right now Villa feel like Fulham to me with the transfers. They're signing that many players that yes, I'm looking at the players thinking they could be great signings, but I looked at Fulham's signings last season and thought these could be good signings. I didn't think they'd get players like this, so I can't go near Villa just because I just worry how is that team going to gel with so many new signings.
It's only their midfield that will probably be similar or the same, because the defence will be completely different. There could be 3 or 4, except for Mings, the whole back 4 could be changed. The keeper's going to be changed. The strike force is going to be changed. It's only really McGinn, Grealish, maybe El Ghazi that are nailed, Yeah.
And then as far as foreign players, I don't think any have come in just yet that I'd be willing to take the punt on. Like, when an Ibrahimovic comes to the Premier League, I'm like, okay, that's someone with a calibre from various leagues where I'm like, okay, I'll give it a go. When someone like Mohamed Salah came in, the numbers were there for his performance in the Italian league. I was like, okay, I'll give it a go. So when the likes of Pepe or Dybala come in, then I might, depending on the price especially, if the price looks too good to be true, then I might take the punt. But otherwise, I'd prefer to wait and see on all new signings. But what I can be guilty of is someone like Pedro comes in and does really well in his debut game, and I'm like, okay, get Pedro in. He did well. And then he doesn't do anything for a while. So I haven't at the moment really gone with anyone unless it's kind of just to fill those budget roles.
Yeah, agreed. That, like Henderson with me and the goalkeeper. So, okay, do we have any more in the chat?
Yes, this is an interesting one, actually. So Buster Barnes wants to know...
Great name.
It is a good name. Are people putting too much in defence this season? He says, sure, last season they got lots of points, but it hasn't been consistent over the years. So what do we think? I mean, a lot of us are all going heavy in defence. So are we putting too much in our defence, do we think? What do you reckon, Nim?
I have not gone any more than 3 premium in defence, and that is generally because I just don't tend to play 4 defenders. I just don't ever tend to do it.
But 3, I mean, you've got 3 premiums, have you? Or
well, I've got Trent and Laporte and Wan-Bissaka at the moment. So there's a fair whack.
Not quite as heavy as some are going, but still a nice wedge.
Yeah, well, not as heavy as Jay, obviously, with his 2 Cities and his 2 Liverpools. I did have 2 Liverpool defenders, and I may still revert back to that because, but I just can't seem to kind of get away from, I know it's going off topic a little bit, but I can't seem to get away a little bit from the fact that I did really quite well by having Mane and Salah last season at some points, as did you, Brett.
Fond memories.
So there's like this kind of bit of me that thinks that if I go in with another Liverpool defender, then there's that thing of might I want Mane in the future, and then it's going to take a little bit of jiggery pokery to kind of obviously move that money and get in another Liverpool player. But in terms of obviously in terms of cash, that is like one of the best ways in, I guess. To Liverpool, it's going to be cheaper than another Mane for definite. Another midfielder as well. So I'm not going as heavy as a lot of people, just because I can see the value. I can see the value, and I know why people are doing it. But I just kind of get so worried by the fact that once their clean sheet is gone, there's you've got to hope that they really are attacking players and they're really going to try and get something else for you. Otherwise, on the weeks where they get a clean sheet, happy days. On the weeks where they do well, they're going to get you bonus points, happy days. But otherwise, not so much, yeah, it's not for me. It's not for me.
What do you
But
reckon, Nels?
Jay's definitely gone quite heavy, so he's on the opposite side of the coin.
Well, look, the reason I've gone so much the other way is because, and a lot of it is to do with some articles written by who got the assist. If you just look at the value, like if you don't consider their position at all, and you just look at the player, their price, points, and the way they can get points. A defender has the clean sheet points, which a midfielder can only get one, and the striker can't get them at all. You've then got assists, and the way the game has changed, you have attacking fullbacks that can get lots of assists, and then also potentially add goals to that. So that's 3 different routes to points for a player that is going to be 7 million or less. Midfield, do you have many 7 million or less options that can necessarily have as many routes to points as a defender that is going to get the assists? Because I think mainly the way the game's going is the defenders get assists more than they get goals, just generally, unless you get an Alonso or someone like that. So for 7 million, you're looking at a player that last season and seasons before, you didn't necessarily have that many strikers in the top scoring players. The premium price midfielders will score big. But then when you start to get to the lower price midfielders and the strikers that are around the 7 million as well, they're not going to score as many as the defenders. So that is why there's been this trend going over to defenders. And yes, it could be one of those seasons where it completely changes. But I've also read articles where there's certain times in the season where heavy defence just generally does well because teams haven't really, even though they've had pre-season, they haven't really got into the gel of things. They're not going to score as many goals at the start of the season potentially because they're still kind of coming back from playing in an international tournament, having a holiday, not having many pre-season games. Some of the big players not having competitive games. Pre-season games probably have a completely different feel than a competitive game. And then later on, the goals start to fly in when the teams meld a bit better. And then later on in the season, legs are more tired. The goals seem to drop off again, apart from certain game weeks where they can go a bit crazy, like game 38. But yeah,
I was going to say you can just see a queue like the most goals scored in the opening weekend.
Oh yeah, it could definitely happen. Definitely happen. And it could. I'm just putting this out there. It could be a season that completely defies everything everyone is saying about going defence heavy.
The thing is, though, do you need to invest that much in defence to get those returns? Much.
If you compare it to your midfielders and your strikers, it's not.
Oh yeah,
that much.
I get that, but when you could have a 4.5 alternative.
But you need that 4.5 alternative to be significant. So if you have a Doherty, fantastic.
Yeah.
And what you can easily do is you can have heavy defence, see that player, because I don't think any of us started off game week 1 when Doherty's definitely going to have a great season. There were people saying he could, but no one was like, he definitely will. You can go heavy in defence and then find those players, drop down and then start looking at the attacking players who you've now had more time to watch. So value-wise, you've probably got more players now in your team that have the pedigree of scoring big points right at the beginning, which is why I think there's been this trend this season specifically where people were starting off so heavy in defence. And it's so easy to get. I know people always worry about how many transfers is it going to take, but all you've got to do is, if you weren't too sure about Laporte, you get a 4.5, that's 2 million you've got extra to spend somewhere else. Then if you've also got a transfer saved, it's not that hard a move to make to improve elsewhere. So as long as you feel like you'd be able to save a transfer somewhere, you could very quickly change the formation you're putting in.
True, very true.
Sorry, I'm very...
No.
This season, that is what I'm going for. I've convinced myself, so...
I can get the point. I can get your point completely, and there's some excellent points there. I struggle. I mean, I shouldn't think I'll have any less than 3 premiums, that's for sure. But there are seasons where I've started with just 2 in every position. Do you know what I mean? 2 premiums in every position. to have a balance there. So I think I will, at the very least have at least 3. But yeah, I mean the persuasion there for a 4th is quite good. Kurt, what do you think?
Oh, well, to keep things on trend with me being absolutely nowhere near anyone else's train of thought.
Just not bothering with defence at all.
Yeah, I've not got any defenders selected, but the game keeps telling me I need to select 5, but that's the point.
How dare they tell you what to do?
My most premium defender is Azpilicueta, and even that one there, I'm beginning to question a bit because, Lampard's teams do like to attack, but I think last season they weren't too good at defending. And then the other ones I've got a 4.0 in Lundstrom, 4.5 Gilbert, Maitland-Niles, who I think is now going to go because I don't fancy his chances of Tierney there, so I've clicked the X on him right now. My other defender is Joe Gomez. Well, it's pretty much confirmed. I mean, actually, it is very Arsenal to now not get the transfer done.
Yeah, thanks for that. You've just cursed us.
Yeah, so I'll untick that X. He's staying in my team now, just in case.
Half for 80 million.
The only 2 premium-ish, I suppose you could say I've got is Azpilicueta at 6 million and Joe Gomez at 5.5. I do like the looks of the premium defenders. The 2 7.0 Liverpool fullbacks. Then it gets a bit questionable. I think Van Dijk at 6.5. If I'm going to go premium for a Liverpool defender, I'll get the extra 0.5 and go for Alexander-Arnold or Robertson, probably Robertson. Alonso, I'm not sure about his attacking potential and his position in general with Lampard coming in. And then Laporte, I think, is too expensive for quite a defence-minded defender. Granted, 3 goals, 3 assists last season, got a load of points. I just think there's cheaper City defenders out there, especially if Zinchenko ends up starting. That's a great choice. And that,
Brett's on a bit of a panic now, though, because he didn't start very much in a couple of the games in pre-season.
Yeah, but
it's very Pep to not start him in the pre-season games, give him barely any time, and then first game of the season, 2:00 or an hour before kickoff to go, surprise, he's playing, and everyone to suddenly, all of a sudden, #Pep or Pap Guardiola or whatever the nicknames are. Then I also compare the prices to the players I've got in midfield, and I prefer the ones in midfield I've got at the moment, premium wise. So that sort of price range, 7.5, 8, 7 million.
Yeah, I think the game have balanced it out this season a lot in terms of that. I think they've seen that the trend is going in defence, and I think that Prem have tried to kind of balance that out a bit by having, so many 7 mil options. Milivojevic, Zaha, Tielemans, oh god, the list is endless, but Madison, Perez, all from Leicester, there's so many 7 mil options this season. It's Lucas Moura, Pulisic, who did well today, you said, so many options. Barkley.
Then the mad thing is with the 7.5 and 7 million is that you go up to strikers and it's absolutely ridiculous. You've got the 3 Chelsea strikers at 7 million, and that's the only other 7 million strikers apart from Marco Arnautovic. By the way, wouldn't advise transferring him in at the moment. And then you've got Haller and Jimenez, and that's it for the 7 million and 7.5. There's absolutely nothing there.
Well. I've noticed there's literally no 5 mil forwards either.
I think the best options for forwards are at 6 million. You go 5.5 or below, and there's absolutely nothing. So they've balanced some parts out, but I've had a bit of a moan here. We started off on premium defenders, and I'm going on mid-range and low attackers. But I think it's ridiculous. It's not balanced at all in the attack. There's absolutely nothing. They're either 6 million, 6.5, or premium, and it's a joke. My rant over.
Okay.
I'm playing the Sun. I'm not really.
Brett, so you've heard everyone's case. How are you feeling now on the whole premium defender front?
Yeah, I'll try and keep it short. I mean, there's been a lot of information there, and Jay made some really good points there. But Nim, you also make points too, because Jay's making the point that the defenders can provide a lot more value than the midfielders at the same price if you look at the points scored. But actually, there are defenders that cheaper that could get the same amount of points as Trent and Robertson this season. The likes of Azpilicueta always performs, and if a Doherty does arise, so for a little bit cheaper, they could get similar amount of points. So it's trying to find those. I mean, just literally going on to the fantasy on the FPL website now, if I just literally order from last season, if I go to 7 million, for example, so Trent and Robertson, who I've got both at the moment, Robertson got over 200 points. Alexander-Arnold would have if he, had played the entire season. So if I filter it by 7 million and I go to midfielders, the highest scoring midfielder, obviously this season now, because there would have been some that scored a bit more that have changed in price now. But the highest scoring midfielder priced at 7 million now is Milivojevic, 166 points. So at the same price, Robertson got 50 points more, basically. So the point I'm trying to make for having Trent and Robertson is even if they don't get to the same heights as they did last season, even if they get 50 points less and get 160, 170 points, they're still returning an unbelievable amount of points for what you're spending on them. So people are like, they're not going to be able to achieve what they did last year. If you take 40 or 50 points off them, their return for 7 million is actually still going to be pretty damn good, But in contrast to that, what you were saying, Nim, is someone like Azpilicueta, $1 million cheaper, also consistently gets 150, 160 points. So if you don't fancy Liverpool to get to those kind of heights, then there are some defenders that could provide that same value over the season, because Azpilicueta does it almost every year. He goes about his business quite quietly, but he racks up the points consistently throughout the season.
It's like Digne, isn't it? I mean, we haven't even touched upon him, but I assume because of the Idris Gueye thing, but obviously, he has the potential to do as well as
absolutely.
Trent.
And his stats were fantastic, but the thing I like about Robertson and Trent, and it's easy to say now because they were so fantastically good defensively last season, Liverpool. They conceded like 23 goals the whole season, which was incredible. And they kept 21 clean sheets or something. With those two, you just feel like you do have two bites of the cherry every game because they provided so many assists. If you don't get the clean sheet with them, it's almost... you've got like another 50% chance they're going to get an assist.
It's almost a different thing for me, is like the way I see it in my head. So I don't really I tend to put them in a different league, which is probably what Jay's doing with the rest of defense, if you see what I mean. So where Jay is like, we can get these points across all defenders. In my head, I'm thinking only two worth really kind of like investing that sort of cash into for me are the likes of, say, Robertson or Trent.
They're the only two I feel safe about.
Exactly. I think that's probably where I'm coming from more, is that it feels kind of a bit more like, like I don't want to do that with everybody because they feel safer, and so why would I not take the cash from the other ones that don't feel as safe and invest them, as Kurt says, into some of the midfielders that I feel look quite good this season, you know?
I think I'm in the same boat as you actually there, Nim. Because I've only got 3 at the back at the moment, and I've got the 2 Robertson and Trent. And granted, they're 7 million, but like you said, they're the ones I feel safe about because there are 2 bites of the cherry. With Luca Digne, I haven't got him because the clean sheet at the moment always feels like I just don't trust Everton to get clean sheets. So therefore, I'm spending 6 million in hope that a defender gets an assist.
Yeah, true.
And that's why I haven't even looked at Doherty, because he's 6 million. He was great attacking wise last year, but no one's going for Doherty because we don't trust him to get clean sheets.
Yeah.
And everyone's basing Luca Digne on their amazing defensive stats at the end of last season. But since then, they've sold Idrissa Gana Gueye. They haven't got Kurt Zuma back. Mm-hmm. So I'm actually in the exact same boat as you. I've only got 3 defenders. And apart from the 2 7 millions, I've got Zinchenko at 5.5 as my next most expensive one.
Cool.
Yeah, okay. So some really good points made there, though. Hopefully, Buster Barnes, you got a lot of info there.
Yes, you got a lot of barns for your buck there.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, I've got one here, which I'm happy to take. Well, at least I've got a bit of information on.
I should mention we had a super chat.
Oh, do we? Wow, I didn't even notice that. I was too busy.
Steve Wynyard. So,
thank you, Steve.
Just thought I'd mention that if we want to make sure we answer his question. You probably missed it.
Rambling there. I was somewhere into the question. Yeah, thank you, Steve.
So shall I ask the question
first?
now?
Yeah. Go for it. Steve gets priority.
Okay, I've now got to find it again, but I'm pretty sure it was. He's looking to rotate a 5.5 midfielder with a 4.5 defender. Yeah, I'm correct. So yeah, if we are looking to get a 5.5 midfielder in and a 4.5 defender to rotate, there's that fifth midfielder, and I'm assuming maybe a fourth defender or third defender. Who would we be looking at? And I think I'll go to Kurt first because he has the knowledge on the promoted sides, and there's a lot of options coming from there.
Well, as you may or may not know, I do support a championship side in Sheffield Wednesday. I am a big championship follower, and I do watch a lot of championship football, which is something you may or may not know about me. I'm going to have to start saying that every single time I mention a championship side, just for the fun of it. Immediately, I'm drawn to Gilbert, 4.5 for a defender. Another defender, which I don't think, I think he's again slipping under the radar. And with Norwich's new goalkeeper, his potential, if you're not going to go for a Farman in goal, is the young lad, Maximilian Aarons. I think that's his first name.
Yeah.
I really like him. I think last season, I think he got young player or player of the year. So brilliant season. And I think he's going to, grow and grow and grow from his experiences in this season. I don't know if Sam Barham will be a problem, but I'd hope Aarons gets the football ahead of Sam Barham. Barham's untested at this level as well. Didn't make it anywhere close to the West Ham team when he was there.
Yeah,
half a season in the team.
So just really quickly, Katie, Max Aarons got a championship team of the year last season, and he's been starting in preseason as well, so he's pretty nailed on.
Oh yeah, well there you go. He's another good option. And for the midfielders, I'm struggling to find a midfielder. There's not many at 5.5 that I like. There is, and the awkward thing is my first choice for the rotation would be Gilbert. My first choice in terms of good players from there is an Aston Villa option in McGinn. But that doesn't really make much sense to rotate Aston Villa with Aston Villa. But then it gets very, very stingy, very, very weird. I don't fancy anyone really, if I'm going to be perfectly honest, at 5.5. If you go down to 5, maybe not a rotation option, but one that's in my team at the moment is Jorginho. I think with Lampard coming in, Kante will be doing a lot of defensive work. That then could free what I think is one of the best passers in the Premier League at the moment to go forward a bit. And if he's on penalties this season with Hazard gone potentially, that could be a lot of points scored as well. But is he a rotation player? I'm not sure. I've got nothing on midfielders, absolutely nothing.
Right now, I've just kind of looks as though I might have stumbled across a similar situation where I could rotate. So I've got Hodgberg for Southampton, who's 5 rather than 5.5. And he's got Burnley green, Liverpool red, Brighton green, Man United red. And then if you wanted to trust Newcastle defence, which I do at the minute, but I don't know if I will, he almost has the opposite. So Arsenal red, Norwich green, Tottenham red, Watford. But also Cathcart is similar as well. He's kind of similar to Lascelles, as in he's got a red green. So those two teams, Watford and Newcastle, seem to rotate quite well with Southampton. So maybe, if there were, in terms of cheap options, if you were looking for one from each of those, you could rotate at least for the first 4 game weeks. Short term, they could be worth a shout. Don't know if that helps any.
Just quickly, I think McGinn at 5.5 is a very good shout, Kurt. He's probably one of my favoured 5.5 options. Villa have some great fixtures to open the season. McGinn did pick up 14 yellow cards last year. That's the one caveat with owning McGinn, but he also took a lot of shots, got lots of assists and goals. So he gives you a bit of everything, but he could pick up quite a few yellow cards. For me, with Villa, Burnley rotate with Villa very, very nicely in the opening 9 game weeks. So just looking here, if you had a 4.5 defender at Burnley, someone like Taylor, I think, is being quite popular, then you could have Southampton at home, Bournemouth at home, Everton at home, Crystal Palace away, West Ham at home, Norwich at home, Burnley at home, Norwich away, Brighton at home. They would be the 9 game weeks that you could rotate Burnley and Aston Villa with. So you could have the likes of McGinn or El Ghazi at Aston Villa at 5.5, and then rotate them with maybe Taylor at Burnley or a 5.5 million Burnley defender. That would be what I'd look at.
There's also the new Arsenal fella, isn't there, at 5?
Yeah,
Cabalas. Yeah, Cabalas. So
he has been mentioned in the chat, but I think the I don't know much about him, but the chat seem to think he's not similar to a Ramsey. He's more of a deeper player. He's not a box to box. He's more of a sort of a playmaker.
He's the assister of the assister. Because I've looked at his stats in Spain, and yeah, there's a limit on his game time at Madrid. But even when he was getting more game time at whatever the club was before Madrid, he's the kind of like 2 goals, 2 assists in the season kind of guy. Like, not great numbers for FPL. Not saying he's not a great signing.
Then again, at 5.5,
But yeah. I mean, I would like to give Westwood a shout out. Just because if you're going for that. Yeah, exactly. I know you mentioned it a few times last season, and then he started getting returns at the end. With Burnley not having European League, and you've got the Aston Villa, if you're going for an Aston Villa defender, then Westwood could be the midfielder you go for.
Yeah. Westwood does tick over, doesn't he? He does tick over.
Yeah. Stop me, if we start wandering into any kind of Watford midfielders by a certain name. So
Will Hughes.
Will Hughes up high.
What's his price?
Up to 5.5. He went up to 5.5. Like, what's that about? I don't know why they did that.
Okay, right. Let me get this last question. FPL Frankenstein, great name, wants to know, how does the Twitter template that is forming compared to teams outside the bubble? Who are the high ownership players that could hurt the community in game week 1? It can become very myopic when you consume only your content off of Twitter. So I did some quick research on this. The top goal scorers at the moment by terms of percentage are Alisson, 32.9%. Button is the second highest owned right now, I assume for cheapness.
Wow.
24%. Yeah, Edison 18%. And Ryan 15.2%. So they're the goalkeepers. In defence, we've got Van Dijk 44.7% owned, Robertson 35.7% owned, Wan-Bissaka 35.4% owned, and Trent at 28.2% owned. In midfields is where it gets a bit more interesting. Salah 36.1%. Sterling 28.4%. Then we have Zaha at 27.2%.
Third highest owned.
Yeah, and Bilver with 26.5% owned. So not who I would necessarily beyond Salah and Sterling have thought would have been the next.
That's interesting.
And then in the forwards, we've got Jimenez, 34.3% owned. So he's the top owned forward at the moment in the game. Kane, 26.6%. So again, right back to the beginning. Obviously, if Kane does start well, and those of us on Twitter who have completely ignored that fact, that, if it stays that way towards the start of the season, Kane could definitely hurt people, as could my boyfriend, Aguero, on 21.9% owned, and Wilson with 21.1% owned.
Wow. I don't own any of those 4. That is scary.
Yeah. So I think it is worth sometimes, before the start of the season, because like we said, Twitter can be such a bubble, and sometimes it's a great bubble and it provides loads of really fantastic information. But other times, you've got to sometimes look at the bigger picture as well. So I think it's a great question that Frankenstein's
What I'd like
out
to
there.
ask you guys to add on to that is, what percentage scares you? Because I think that's a big factor in that. Because I'm looking at those numbers, I brought them up myself, and there are some that I'm like Van Dijk at 44.7%. That scares me, because that is really high. Of course, Salah I've got, so 36.1%. Alisson, not too bothered about, because 32.9%. But unless Alisson gets an assist with his clean sheet, he's not really going to outscore my Robertson or Alexander-Arnold or anyone like that. as far as the strikers go for me, Jimenez, that is worrying because 34.3%. I would not have assumed he was that high. 26.8 for me is kind of with Kane is like just that kind of area where I'm like, as long as he doesn't go ridiculously high with his goals, which is possible against Villa, I'm not too concerned about. And for me, the number would be around 30%. As soon as it starts to creep over 30, then I start to get worried. But of course, if Kane and Aguero then both do well, then that's going to, of course, hurt me. But percentage-wise, for me, it's always good to know because you know what players that maybe if you were on the fence about, you could bring in because it's going to help your rank just to stay similar to where you're at. But that Jimenez really worries me now.
Yeah, I mean,
and I think what's interesting for me is how close Aguero and Sterling are. Like, I thought Sterling would be a lot more owned, weirdly in my head, just because of Twitter. Because every team I see, it doesn't have Aguero, but it has Sterling in it. So I think that was quite surprising for me actually seeing that. 'Cause it's like, wow, they're, and maybe I'm biased. I do think Sterling could probably do better than Aguero, this season. And, I do have to, consider that. But I think my hope was that I could combine KDB with Aguero and then maybe kind of get my,
you can't cheat your boyfriend, can you?
Extra
Really?
point.
He has to be in.
Wow. If he doesn't start on the weekend, he's not going to be in there at the start of the season, just so you knows. He is on holiday with some blonde woman at the moment. I'm completely ignoring that fact. We're having words, so
that's just like PR. It's just
once he gets back into
that's not good PR. That's really not good PR.
Public relations there.
Who's advised him of that? Goodness me.
PR woman.
Clearly didn't like that.
It's just like, I've got to go check on this.
Cool. Okay. So I'll just we did have one more question, a random question, but not from Jeffers tonight, but from here he is. He's back in. You didn't like that so much then, Kurt?
I don't know what happened. I just saw red and then I just started.
Didn't you? You were like, what's this one look like? I need some.
I just lost my temper.
I
didn't want you guys to see it, so I had to leave.
Okay, we have a random question. I was just saying to the lads from Momo this week rather than Jeffers. As we were so spontaneous with our live, we didn't get a chance to get a Jeffers question.
Did try and ask us while we were streaming. If
did you? Oh, okay. But, okay.
Yeah, we have one today, Jeffers, but thank you so much.
Thank you, Jeffers. Mo asks if we could be going on holiday, where would we most like to go? So I know for me, the one place I haven't visited that I'd love to go would be kind of the Caribbean or Mauritius. That'd be kind of my place. What about you, Kurt?
I went to Mauritius on a family holiday.
Ooh.
I was fortunate, silver spoon and all that. I've fortunately been to a few places. I would like, albeit it's quite a scary place, to go to Jamaica. I think that's quite a cool place to go to. If not, my dream holiday has always been the same. It's to go and tour America for a few months and do all the biggest theme parks, because unfortunately I still haven't grown up.
Awesome. Jay?
I don't know. I've literally been sitting
nowhere
there
in
going,
the world
there's lots of places. Like lots of places.
There is so many places.
I mean, if I could say,
what about Thailand with the amount of Thai food that you eat?
It's only 2 days in a row.
What about Barnsley?
I'm just glad you added the food bit. Just go, what about Thailand? And then just leave it.
And that's it for this stream. Thanks, everyone.
I would love to just tour the world. I just want to go to everywhere. Like, I wouldn't say there's any one. The one place I wanted to go more than anywhere else was Brazil, because my mum's from there. But I've done that, so it's I just want to go everywhere.
Saying everywhere, you haven't left much for Brett.
Yeah,
everything else.
Now what does he choose?
Nah, there's so many options, honestly.
Out of space.
Yeah, the moon.
That's a great shout, actually. I love it.
Yeah.
I'd like to go to Italy again because I'm learning Italian and it helps to practice talking Italian, that kind of thing. I've always had a fascination with Japan, but I've actually been there before, but I'd love to go back. If I wanted to go somewhere for like a proper LTD, like living the dream, I want to go to the Maldives.
Yeah.
Just chill out, go in one of those like little huts on the water.
They
You
look
can you can go
amazing,
on the
don't they?
slide like from your bedroom into the water. Just sunbathe all day.
Basically, anywhere with crystal waters for me and white
Absolutely.
sands. That is just
just sunbathing all day. I love all that. I just love chilling.
Yeah.
So that would suit me. Maldives for sure.
Awesome. Yeah. Cool. Jay, polls, please, if you do not mind.
We only had 2 because we were very spontaneous. And literally I was trying to get them up just before we started streaming. I went with the 2 first questions I could find on Twitter. We had who's the most nailed on 4 million defender. The results in are Lundstrom at 50%, with Kelly at 42%. Rico getting 7%, and I put in Johnson from West Ham because he's got some game time recently, but no one clicked on that. But he was part of the question. And then the other poll we have is best 6.5 million midfielder, not at Leicester. We had we didn't speak about him, but Redmond, 38%.
Yeah.
Pereira, 30% from Watford. Matinho, 15% from Wolves. And then Townsend and Fornals from West Ham got 7% each.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah, brilliant. Cool.
And that is it for the polls.
Brilliant. Well, guys, if you've enjoyed it, thank you so much for joining us. Please don't forget to like and subscribe and hit that notification bell. And I'll pass you over to Jay to wrap us up.
You took my subscribe notification, but that's what I say. Like, what do I say now?
You say goodbye.
Also, guys, we will be, because I saw it in the chat, someone was saying, is this a regular stream? We will be pushing to make this weekly stream. We're still working on the day, but as soon as we know, we will get that out to you guys. And correct me if I'm wrong, we will be definitely trying to stream next week before the season starts. So stay tuned, like Nim said, subscribe and hit that notification bell so you know when we are going live. And follow us on Twitter as well, where we will announce it that we're going live, usually the morning of, but if we know more in advance, we will, of course, let you know in advance. And also we do get guests on as well, if you didn't know, if you are new around here, because there were a few subscribers today. So
I remembered something as well.
Oh, there we go.
Any questions we didn't get a chance to mention tonight, because I know this is like Kurt's thing. We will hopefully be doing it on Instagram. So do make sure you go over to Instagram and follow us there, because any questions we didn't get around to tonight, we will hopefully be able to answer there for you.
There was actually one from Rob that we didn't get to answer. So
okay,
Rob,
so if you could note that down for us, that'd be brilliant. We'll answer it on Instagram for you, Rob.
Okay, and I believe that is everything. So, guys, thank you so much for joining us in the stream, and hopefully you will join us next week. See you guys later.